This video is a supplemental lecture that is meant to expand upon some material that is covered in the lecture entitled The Function Argument, and you can find a link to that video in the description section below. In Chapter 7, Book 1 of the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle provides his general account of eudaimonia, or his general account of what we might call living a good human life. And the answer he gives to this question of what it means to live a good life is that it consists of activity of the soul in accordance with reason that is accomplished in accordance with virtue, taking place over a complete life. But now that we have this answer from Aristotle, we should ask, does this conception of eudaimonia fit Aristotle's own criteria for eudaimonia that he has laid out? From his discussion of the nature of happiness in chapters 1 through 7, we were able to glean 5 different criteria that Aristotle himself believes something must meet in order to qualify as eudaimonia. It must be the end of all human activity. It must be more worthy of choice than any other end. It must be unique to the human species. It must be something that is at least to a large extent within our control to achieve. And then finally, it must be both complete without qualification and self-sufficient. So, does activity in accordance with reason, accomplished through virtue, practiced over a complete life, meet all these criteria? The purpose of this video will be to answer that question with a particular emphasis on the question of whether eudaimonia, as Aristotle conceives of it, is both complete without qualification as well as self-sufficient. To begin, let's consider the first 2 criteria. Eudaimonia is that at which all our actions aim, and it is more worthy of choice than any other end. I think we can now see how Aristotle's notion of eudaimonia would qualify here if we stress the fact that Aristotle believes eudaimonia constitutes our human perfection. If we think that the human being, however confusedly and sometimes awkwardly, with of course many errors along the way, does still strive through all its actions to reach its own perfection, then it would follow that all our actions, in some sense, must aim at that end. Consequently, this end, by definition, would also be that which is most choice-worthy. There is nothing that would be more worthy of our attention than the perfection of our human nature. And furthermore, if the perfection of the human being is to be found in controlling the appetitive part of our soul through our reason, that is, controlling our desires through rational processes of thought, then activity of soul in accordance with reason would indeed qualify as what it means to achieve the perfection of our nature. And if that is the case, then it would also qualify and be the proper candidate for the final end of all human action. Aristotle also claims that eudaimonia must be something distinctive of the human species, something that is not shared by any other animal. And activity of the soul in accordance with reason would seem to fit the bill, insofar as, at least in Aristotle's view, no other animal possesses the capacity for reason and the ability to control one's instincts through reason like the human being does. It would follow that no other animal could achieve eudaimonia in Aristotle's sense. The 4th criteria of eudaimonia is that it must be something that is, at least to a significant extent, within our control. Now, importantly, this does not mean completely within our control. There are certain external goods that we need to live a flourishing life, and our ability to attain these things does require some amount of good fortune. However, the basic core of eudaimonia, the development of virtue, is within our power to achieve. Doing so is difficult, and it takes training and practice, a topic that Aristotle discusses extensively in Book 2, but with the appropriate effort, any person can develop the virtuous traits that contribute to their perfection as a human being. Finally, Aristotle also believes that eudaimonia must be something complete without qualification and self-sufficient. That is, it must be something chosen entirely for its own sake, and, once it has been attained, it must be the case that nothing else is needed for a flourishing and happy human life. Here I want to focus further on the claim that eudaimonia is self-sufficient. Why think that the activity of acting in accordance with reason and developing virtue is all that is needed for a good and flourishing life? After all, suppose you had developed the ability to control your desire and passions through reason in a way that produced virtuous moral behavior. That sounds like a great thing. But wouldn't your life be even better if it included, in addition to that, a few more vacations or honors or maybe a little more wealth? Is it really true that eudaimonia cannot be improved upon? To understand Aristotle's point here, we need a proper conception of what eudaimonia involves. We need to understand that it is a good that is significantly different from any other good thing. The commentator Christopher Warney explains this point. He explains that eudaimonia is crucially different from external goods like money, honors, and friendships. Money, for example, is good, but only good if it is correctly managed in the context of a whole life. We don't want money, holidays, friendships, and additionally a eudaimon life. Rather, virtuous activity is what is responsible for the correct management of external goods into a eudaimon life. Things like money and vacations and friendships and honors can be good, but they can also be bad. We can put our money to good use in the service of useful projects, or we can use it to waste our lives in the pursuit of empty pleasures. Honor can sometimes motivate us to continue accomplishing great, virtuous, and worthy things, or it can simply feed our ego and give us a false sense of confidence. The point is that the goods of this sort, call them external goods, only contribute to our flourishing if they are used in the right way. However, eudaimonia is not like that. Eudaimonia is always good to have, in part because the person who listens to reason and develops virtue will also necessarily be the person who uses all these things in the right way. Eudaimonia is what permits us to manage all of the other good things in life properly in the context of the plans that we have. The person who has achieved eudaimonia will not waste their money or succumb to the temptation to feed her ego through the pursuit of honor. Rather, this person will understand the value of each of these things and consequently understand how to employ them correctly and when to pursue them. As such, what really matters is not that we hoard up as much wealth or honor or friendships as possible, but that we have enough of these things to live a flourishing life, and that we pursue these things in a virtuous manner through the use of our reason. From this, it follows that complete eudaimonia must be self-sufficient. It cannot really be improved upon. Again, Warney explains this point. The activity of correctly ordering all the goods available to one in life cannot be improved upon by the addition of an extra external good. It can only be improved by more excellent management. But since eudaimonia is the best, it implies that the management is already excellent and so is unimprovable. Eudaimonia is a type of perfection, and as such, it has an endpoint beyond which it would be impossible to improve upon. Theoretically, it is always possible to acquire more money. There is no point at which a person has so much money that they cannot have even another dollar. That is because the mere possession of money is not itself a skill which can be perfected. Yet the ability to properly manage one's external goods and plan how to live a good human life is a skill that can be developed, practiced, and perfected. Of course, it is unlikely that any human being has actually ever achieved the complete perfection of eudaimonia, the complete perfection of living a good human life, and it is unlikely that anyone actually ever will. However, if one were to achieve this, then there would be nothing else we would need for a flourishing life. By definition, there would be no way in which their ability to live in accordance with reason and virtue could be improved. Still, we might think that the original objection has not fully been met. Even if someone has perfected the ability to manage whatever external goods they have in the best way possible, Let's say they manage pleasure, wealth, honor, power, and friendship perfectly and just as a virtuous person should. Wouldn't it still be the case that their life would be even better with just a little more of any of these things, assuming these also would be managed properly? On this point, I think it can be helpful to again consult Aquinas' commentary. Aquinas tells us that happiness has self-sufficiency because of itself it furnishes everything that is absolutely necessary, but it does not supply everything that can come to a man. Man can be made better by an additional good, but a man's desire for this does not remain unsatisfied because a desire controlled by reason, such as a truly happy man should have, is undisturbed by the things that are unnecessary even though attainable. Happiness, therefore, has this quality above everything else. It is desirable even when not augmented by other goods. However, if it does receive an addition, be it ever so small, surely that is even more desirable. In Aquinas' view, the life of the person who has achieved eudaimonia can be improved in a certain sense through additional external goods. The person who can manage all the goods in their life perfectly would be even better off with one more vacation or maybe another friend. However, the important point is that this individual does not need these things and feels no sense of dissatisfaction without them. Because this person's desires are controlled by reason, the person who has achieved eudaimonia understands that happiness and flourishing are entirely possible without these things. This is why eudaimonia is still desirable when not augmented by other goods, even if hypothetically those other goods might make a small addition to the happiness of our lives. By way of comparison, imagine you are enjoying a beach vacation. You are sitting on the beach, listening to the waves, reading a great book, and feeling a sense of complete contentment and satisfaction. Now, if you were to think about it, there are probably various ways in which that very enjoyable time could even still be improved. Perhaps the food could have been a little better, or maybe your friend could have been there with you, or maybe it's just that the vacation could have lasted a few more days. However, when you are in the moment enjoying your time on the beach, you are not thinking about any of those things. It may be true that hypothetically the vacation could have been made better if X, Y, and Z had happened. It may be true that you're not technically experiencing the best vacation imaginable. But despite this, you are still completely content. I believe this is what Aquinas is saying about the happy life in this passage. Just like the person experiencing the vacation I described feels no need for anything greater, the person who has truly mastered the art of living well might hypothetically be better off with additional external goods, but will feel no dissatisfaction or lack from not having them. And the reason for this is because the person who has mastered the art of living well understands what is most important in life and recognizes that she has already achieved it. Ultimately, if we have a certain baseline of good things in our lives and are lucky enough to avoid inordinate suffering, then the real task before us is to manage the good things that we do have well. And if we develop the ability to manage these external goods perfectly, then there's really nothing else we would need to live a happy and flourishing human life.